Okay, so you want to own a car wash. You buy a lot on a busy road, put up a tunnel, sell people a monthly plan for $30, and collect that money whether they show up or not. Water and soap cost pennies. 4 employees run the whole site. The machine works while you sleep. That's the picture everyone has. A concrete box on a corner that turns a few cents of chemical into a $15 sale, 300 times a day, with a subscription bolted on so the money still arrives in February when nobody in the state is thinking about a dirty car. Private equity has spent the last decade buying these by the hundred. Equipment manufacturers will build you one, train your staff, and hand you a spreadsheet where the whole thing pays for itself in 7 years. It sounds like the last simple business in America. Low labor, high margin, recurring revenue, and a product people buy on impulse without ever checking the price. It isn't simple, and the reason has almost nothing to do with washing cars. Let's start with what you think you're buying. 3 completely different businesses put the words car wash on the sign. There's the self-serve bay, where the customer does the work and you rent him 4 minutes of high-pressure water. There's the in-bay automatic beside a gas station, one machine rolling back and forth over a parked car. And there's the express exterior tunnel, the 100-foot conveyor with free vacuums in the lot, which is the format that took over the industry and the only one anyone is writing checks for. The express tunnel didn't win because it washes better. It won on labor. A full-service wash. The old model where a crew towel dries your car and wipes the dash runs labor at something like 40% of revenue. Every car that arrives requires human hands. That business does not scale because the only way to serve more cars is to hire more people, and the people are the cost. The express exterior deleted the crew. The customer stays in the car, drives onto the belt, comes out the other end, and vacuums the interior themselves in your parking lot for free. Labor drops to roughly 15 to 18% of revenue, and, more importantly, stops rising with volume. 3 attendants can push 100 cars through a tunnel, or 300. The wage bill barely moves. That single change is what attracted the capital. You have a business where almost every cost is fixed and almost none of it is variable. Understand what that actually means before you go further, because it cuts both ways, and the second way is the one that kills people. Every car above your break-even point is nearly pure profit. Every car below it is a catastrophe. There is no middle. You are not buying a business with margins. You are buying a business with a volume threshold. So the entire question becomes, how many cars per day forever? Which is why the first real cost isn't the tunnel, it's the corner. Here's where it gets interesting, because a car wash does not create demand. Nobody wakes up and decides to drive across town to a specific wash. They are already going somewhere, they pass a sign, and they turn. That means your revenue is a function of a traffic count you did not create and cannot change, filtered through a set of turning movements decided by a public engineer 20 years ago. You are buying a position in somebody else's commute. The site you want has around 25 to 35,000 vehicles per day passing it, a signalized intersection, and enough frontage to hold a queue. Roughly 1.5 acres. On a corner like that, in a growing metro, land runs $1.5 million to $2.5 million, and you are bidding against a drugstore chain, a coffee franchise, and a quick lube operator who all want the exact same dirt for the exact same reason. Let's say you win it at $1.8 million. Now build. The tunnel structure and canopy, the equipment room, the office, the vacuum arches, the site work, the drainage, the utility runs, the paving and lighting. Call it $2.4 million. The tunnel itself, conveyor, arches, wraps, dryers, the water reclaim system, the reverse osmosis for the spot-free rinse, pay stations, the cameras that read license plates, is another $1.2 to $1.4 million. Engineering, permits, impact fees, legal, and a year of carrying costs while you wait for approvals, $300,000. You're at $5.7 million for a building whose entire function is to spray water on a moving car. Finance it the normal way. 70% loan to cost, so $4 million of debt at 7.5% on a 20-year amortization. That's about $386,000 a year leaving your account before you have paid a single employee, bought a single gallon of soap, or washed a single car. $1,700 a day, every day, including the Tuesday in January when it rains, and 11 cars show up. Now hold that number, because this is where the first trap opens. You bought a corner. You did not buy access to it. Every car that reaches your tunnel has to physically turn into your lot, and the turn is not yours to grant. The state or county transportation department controls the curb cut, how many driveways you get, how wide, how far from the intersection, and whether a car traveling in the far lane is permitted to cross traffic to reach you. If there is a raised median in front of your site, you have just lost every vehicle traveling in the opposite direction, which is roughly half of your traffic count. If the county decides 3 years after you open to install one, because of a fatality study or a corridor plan, you lose them then instead, and there is no compensation. Restricting access is traffic management. It is not a taking. Nobody writes you a check. This is why two sites with identical traffic counts, a mile apart, can be two entirely different businesses. Volume follows the turn, not the road. And the turn is only half of it. The other half is what happens after the car turns in. A tunnel can process somewhere between 60 and 90 cars an hour in real conditions. On a sunny Saturday after a week of rain, demand at your site between 11 and 3 does not resemble your daily average at all. That 4-hour window can be a quarter of your entire weekend. If the queue is longer than the space you have on your own property, cars back up into the public road. When that happens, two things follow. The city cites you, because blocking a right-of-way is a code violation attached to your certificate of occupancy. And, more expensively, the drivers who see a line spilling into the street simply keep driving, and most of them do not come back later. So the constraint on your revenue is not the length of your tunnel. It is the number of cars you are legally allowed to stack on your own asphalt. You can buy a longer tunnel. You cannot buy more lot. The same logic applies to the thing everybody treats as a giveaway, the free vacuums. Those stalls are not a courtesy. They are the reason the express model works, because they let the customer perform the interior labor you refuse to pay for. But a customer at a vacuum occupies a space for 15 to 25 minutes. So your arch count sets how many members the site can absorb before the lot turns unpleasant. 20 arches versus 12 is the difference between a site that holds 2,000 members and one that chokes at 1,200. You are not building a car wash with a parking lot attached. You are building a parking lot with a tunnel at one end, and the lot is the part that sets the ceiling. Now, here's the other side of the ledger. The variable cost of washing one car is genuinely tiny, and this is the fact that seduces everyone. Chemicals, pre-soak, detergent, the ceramic sealant everybody upsells now, drying agent, run something like 60 to 90 cents per vehicle. Water is nearly free per car, especially with a reclaim system recovering 60 to 80% of what you use. Electricity for the motors and dryers on a heavy day is meaningful, but small per unit. Marginal cost per car, all in, somewhere around $1.25. If you stopped there, a $15 wash looks like a 92% margin. Nobody stops there, because the rest of the cost structure does not care how many cars you wash. Take the site above at a genuinely good volume, 300 cars a day, about $110,000 a year. Payroll for 3 to 5 people on shift plus a site manager, with the taxes and workers' comp that most first-time buyers forget to include, lands near $190,000. Chemicals at $75,000. Water, sewer, and electricity at $85,000. And note that many municipalities bill sewer as a function of water purchased, not water discharged. So your reclaim system saves you on the intake and saves you nothing on the outflow charge, unless you fight the city for a deduct meter. Repairs and maintenance is the line that new owners underwrite at half of reality. A tunnel is 30-odd moving assemblies operating in a permanent saltwater fog. Cloth and foam wear out. Bearings seize. The conveyor chain stretches. Budget $70,000 a year and understand what it actually protects. An hour of downtime at noon on a Saturday costs you more revenue than an entire Tuesday. Then insurance at $30,000, property taxes at $45,000, marketing at 55 because you are permanently buying new customers for reasons we'll get to, credit card processing at 30 because effectively every transaction is a card, and administrative overhead at 40. Call operating costs $620,000. There's one more, and it's the one that catches people who came from other industries. When your machine breaks a mirror, snaps an antenna, or scratches a rocker panel, that damage is not covered by an ordinary general liability policy. Liability policies exclude property in your care, custody, and control, and a customer's car sitting on your conveyor is exactly that. You need a separate garage keeper's endorsement, and even with it, the practical reality is that most operators pay small claims out of pocket rather than file because the deductible is higher than the mirror and the claim history follows the policy. Every wash has a running cash line for making angry people go away. So, a strong site does about $1.1 million of revenue, spends $620,000 to operate, and produces roughly $500,000 of EBITDA. Against $5.7 million of cost, that's a return on investment of about 8.5%. Then debt service takes $386,000. You clear a bit over $100,000 a year before you set aside anything for the equipment you will absolutely have to replace, and before you pay yourself for the 50 hours a week you are currently spending unclogging a coin vault and arguing about a scratched bumper. That is the good outcome. That is a well-located, well-run, fully stabilized express tunnel. Which raises the obvious question. If the operating business only clears $100,000 on a $5.7 million investment, why did an entire generation of investors decide this was the best small business in America? Because they weren't buying wash revenue. They were buying a subscription base. Here's the thing nobody explains when they show you the pro forma. At a mature express wash, somewhere between 60 and 75% of the cars going through that tunnel are not paying for that wash. They paid at the beginning of the month for an unlimited plan at $20 to $40 depending on the market and the tier. Mr. Car Wash, the largest operator in the country and the only one you can look up on a stock exchange, has built a base of roughly 2 million of these members, and they account for the substantial majority of the company's wash volume. The wash is not the product. The wash is the fulfillment of a product that was already sold. Run the arithmetic on what that does. Say you sign 1,800 members at an average of $28. That's $50,000 a month. $600,000 a year. That arrives on the first regardless of weather, regardless of season, regardless of whether anyone drives onto your belt. Layer retail on top, the tourists, the one-timers, the people who won't commit, at maybe 35,000 washes a year at $13, and you have the 1,100,000 from before. Notice what happened to your pricing. Your retail wash is $15. Your member wash is 3 times a month for $28, so they pay about $9 a wash. You have voluntarily cut your own price by 40% for 2/3 of your customers. Every operator does this on purpose, and understanding why is the whole game. You did it to convert an impulse purchase into a recurring charge. An impulse purchase depends on weather, mood, and whether the driver noticed the sign. A recurring charge depends on nothing except the customer's willingness to keep not canceling. The first one is a business that goes to zero in a rainy month. The second one is an annuity. But an annuity has a rate of decay, and in this industry, the decay is brutal. Monthly member churn at a typical express wash runs 6 to 9%. Sit with that. At 7% a month, you lose 84% of your base over a year. Your 1,800 members are not 1,800 people. They are a bathtub with the drain open, and every month you have to pour 125 new people in just to keep the water at the same line. That is what the marketing line is actually for. It is not brand building, it is replacement. So the business you thought you bought, a machine that washes cars, is a customer acquisition operation that happens to own a tunnel. The tunnel is depreciating capital equipment. The list of active credit cards is the asset, and the list has to be rebuilt, in full, roughly every 14 months. Now the counterintuitive part. Everyone assumes the heavy user is the problem, the guy who washes his truck 11 times a month on a $28 plan. At $1.25 of chemical per wash, he costs you $14 to serve. He's still profitable. He is not the problem. The problem is when he shows up. Heavy users cluster at exactly the same hours as everyone else, the first clear Saturday after a stretch of bad weather. Your capacity is fixed at 80 cars an hour. In the peak window, every member in the queue is displacing a retail customer who would have handed you $15 for that same slot. Members don't cost you chemicals. They cost you Saturday, at the 1 hour of the week when your capacity is worth the most. And there's a beautiful inversion buried in the same structure. A rainy week destroys a retail wash and does almost nothing to a membership wash, because the money already cleared. Once your base is deep enough, you have effectively sold yourself weather insurance, and the premium is the 40% discount you handed your members. In a snowbelt market with road salt 8 months a year, penetration and pricing both run higher, and operators there will tell you a February storm is a revenue event. The plans are not a discount program, they are a hedge. So far, the Express Wash sounds like a machine that converts a corner into an annuity. Here's the trap almost nobody sees coming. The number of cars in your trade area is fixed. The amount of capital that wants to serve them is not. An Express Wash draws from about a 3 to 5 mile radius because a subscription customer will not drive past a competitor to reach you. The product is identical everywhere. The same manufacturers sell the same arches to everyone, and the price is within $3 across every operator in the county. So the deciding factor is not quality or brand, it's which wash sits on the right-hand side of the road the driver is already on. Your competitive moat is a turning movement. Now put capital into that picture. Between roughly 2019 and 2022, this sector went from a fragmented industry of family operators to one of the hottest roll-up targets in America. Mr. Car Wash went public in 2021. Driven Brands, the company behind a stack of automotive franchises, bought its way into car wash at scale. Private equity funds bought regional chains at multiples that used to be 6 or 7 times earnings and were suddenly 12 to 15. Manufacturers noticed the trend and became franchisors. The company that sells you the tunnel will now also sell you the business model, the site selection study, and the brand on the sign. When acquisition multiples go to 15 and construction cost is $6 million for a site that stabilizes at $500,000, building becomes cheaper than buying. So everyone built. And here is the mechanism that matters. Supply in this industry responds to the availability of capital, not to the number of dirty cars. Nobody counted the vehicles. They counted the multiple. By 2023, you had metros with 4 express tunnels inside 1.5 miles of each other, all of them underwritten on the assumption of 300 cars a day in a corridor that generates enough demand for maybe 500 total. The math does not resolve. Driven Brands wrote down the value of its U.S. car wash business by an amount in the high hundreds of millions of dollars and moved to get out of the segment entirely. That write-down was not caused by anyone washing cars badly. It was caused by too much money arriving in the same 3 years. And when the 4th tunnel opens near yours, you discover the specific cruelty of the subscription model you spent 4 years building. He opens with an introductory offer. First month free, then $9.99 for 3 months. He can afford it because he has fresh equity, no legacy base, and every single sign-up is incremental to him. Your members, the ones who are, remember, 6 to 9% likely to leave in any given month anyway, try the new place. It's cleaner because it's new. Some come back, many don't. You have exactly one weapon, and it doesn't work. If you match him at $9.99, you don't price it to the couple of hundred customers you're trying to win. You price it to your entire base of 1,800 people, all at once. Because you cannot legally or practically charge 2 different prices for the same plan in the same lot. His promotion is a marketing expense. Yours is a tax on revenue you already had. He spends $30,000 to acquire customers. You spend $300,000 to keep the ones you have. That asymmetry is why express washes don't die from empty lots. They die from a competitor's 6-month promotional calendar. And once volume slides, The fixed cost structure that made this business beautiful on the way up runs in reverse with the same leverage. A 20% drop in volume does not cut your profit by 20%. Payroll barely moves because you still have to staff the tunnel to be open. Debt service doesn't move at all. Property taxes, insurance, and utilities don't move. That 20% of revenue comes almost entirely out of the bottom, and a $500,000 EBITDA becomes $280,000. Now your lender's coverage covenant is in play, distributions stop, and the maintenance budget is the first thing you quietly defer. The dryers get weaker, the cloth gets ragged, cars come out wet, which produces more churn, which produces less revenue. Now, there's one more structural decision in this industry, and it's the one that separates the operators who survive a downturn from the ones who don't. At some point, someone will offer to buy your real estate. Net lease REITs love car washes, a single-tenant building, a corporate guarantee, a 15 or 20-year lease with rent escalators on a hard corner that's valuable even if the tenant dies. They'll pay you a 6% cap rate on the rent, which for your site might mean $3.5 million in cash today in exchange for $210,000 a year in rent, forever, rising 2% annually. The pitch is irresistible. You get your equity back, redeploy it into the next 2 sites, and grow without raising money. Almost every large chain did exactly this. It's how the roll-ups scaled so fast. But look at what you're left holding. Your $500,000 of EBITDA becomes $290,000 after rent, and the rent has an escalator, while your wash price is set by whoever opened last month. You converted the most defensive asset on your balance sheet into a permanent, indexed obligation. When the 4th tunnel opens and volume falls 20%, the owner who still holds his dirt has a rough year. The owner who sold his dirt has a lease he cannot exit, on a building he no longer owns, in a corridor with too many washes. The land was the cushion. Selling it turned the cushion into a clock. So where is the money actually made in this industry? Not in the wash. Follow the 2 people who genuinely got rich. The first is the developer. Build the site for $5.7 million. Stabilize it at $500,000 of EBITDA over 2 years. Sell it to a chain at a 6.25 cap, and you're at $8 million. That's a $2 million gain, created once, which is roughly 20 years of the operating cash flow you were so unimpressed by earlier. The entire profit in a car wash is the spread between what it costs to build one and what a larger buyer will pay for a stabilized one. Operating it well is not the business. Operating it well is how you make the asset saleable. The second is the operator with enough sites in one metro to change the arithmetic. A single wash is a job with a machine attached. 20 washes in the same city share a marketing spend, a maintenance crew that drives between sites, a purchasing contract with the chemical supplier, and, crucially, then a membership that works at every location. That last one is the actual moat. It converts the wash on one commute into the wash on every commute a driver takes, and it is the only version of this business where a customer has a reason to prefer you. 20 sites also sell at a different multiple than one site because the buyer is purchasing a platform instead of a corner. The same tunnel, the same chemicals, the same 80 cars an hour is worth more inside a network. Nothing about the wash changed. The buyer did. And the third one, the one nobody counts, the manufacturer. Sonny's, Tommy's, the handful of firms that build conveyors and arches. They sold equipment into a construction boom, then sold replacement parts to everyone who bought during it, and they'll sell a full retunnel to whoever survives the next 5 years. They took no site risk and never worried about a median. Every operator in every corridor is their customer, including the one about to put you out of business. So understand what your $5 million actually purchased. It didn't buy a machine. The machine is a commodity, sold to your competitor at the same price, by the same salesman. It didn't buy customers, because the ones you have are on a monthly drain and will leave for a cleaner building 9/10 of a mile away. You are not buying a car wash. You are buying a recurring charge on a stranger's credit card, secured by nothing except the fact that turning into your lot is currently the easiest thing on his way home. That charge is the entire asset. It renews in silence, it cancels in silence, and it holds only until someone with newer money builds a slightly easier turn.